At a high-level executive meeting, Ethan Fu's newly hired assistant threw a whole cup of bubble tea in my face. Ms. Lin, Assistant Winnie is calling all managers to the main conference room in 10 minutes, Jess from administration announced, clearly in a rush. I didn't even glance up, my fingers flying over the keyboard. Nope. Not happening. I muttered. I don't have time. In the 6 months I'd been at Fu Corp, I hadn't attended a single meeting, not because I wasn't supposed to, but because I didn't want to. But Jess hesitated. Assistant Winnie said attendance is mandatory today. Mr. Fu insisted. I froze. My game character froze mid-fight. 1 second later, the screen went gray. I had just been wiped out by the boss. I muttered a curse under my breath, shutting the laptop. By the time I stepped into the conference room, it was already packed. Curious whispers followed me. Why is Manager Lin here? She never shows up to anything. Assistant Winnie must have thrown a fit. I ignored them, slipping into a corner seat and immediately reopening my game on my phone. 30 minutes late, Ethan Fu and Winnie Mion finally appeared. Winnie, clutching a stack of files, wore a triumphant smirk. Thank you for attending today's meeting, she began. Ethan scanned the room quickly, his gaze barely brushing me before moving on. Assistant Winnie has an important proposal to present, he announced. Winnie launched into her presentation, rattling off her innovative marketing strategy. I played on my phone, half listening, silently judging the absurdity of her plan. The budget was ridiculous and the strategy didn't fit the company's brand at all. And so, I propose we invest $80 million to dominate the high-end market in just 3 months, she concluded. A few polite claps echoed through the room. I couldn't hold back. Without looking up, I said, $80 million for meaningless exposure? You might as well toss the money off the roof. That would at least get people talking. The room fell silent. Ethan's brow furrowed. What did you say? Winnie's voice cracked. I finally looked up. Your plan has major flaws. The target audience is wrong, the distribution strategy is off, and your ROI calculations are completely unrealistic. That $20 million you're throwing around is basically burning cash. Winnie's face turned red. She grabbed her bubble tea and, without warning, hurled it at me. Splash. The drink soaked my white blouse, dripping down my cheeks. Skylin, as the CEO's assistant, I officially fire you. Out. I slowly stood, reached for a handkerchief, and calmly wiped the mess from my face. Then I looked at Ethan. He frowned but avoided meeting my gaze, silent. I smiled, pulling out my phone and putting it on speaker. Dad, did you hear that? I said. They told me to leave? A pause. Then his low, commanding voice replied, Understood. I'll handle it. The truth was, I only took this job because of a marriage contract my grandfather had arranged. Ethan Fu was my fiancé. I hated arranged marriages, but my father had guilted me into compliance, using filial duty as leverage. He insisted I join Fu Corp to bond with Ethan. 6 months in, I looked like a total slacker, spending most of my time gaming. But behind the scenes, I used my resources to boost the company's performance, even nudging it toward a successful IPO. Fu Corp skyrocketed, and Ethan made the city's rich list. Despite my contributions, we barely spoke. He only knew I was his arranged fiancé, not the one secretly steering his company toward success. I sat back down, resumed my game, fingers flying over the screen as if the tension around me didn't exist. Winnie's face shifted from red to green, clearly stunned at my indifference. She slammed her hand on the table. Skylin, what do you think you're doing? Everyone else is focusing on the meeting, and you're playing a game. I leaned back, smirking. I've already exceeded my annual targets. Why can't I enjoy a little game time? If you don't leave, I'll call security. Go ahead, I said, eyes still on the screen. Executives exchanged uneasy glances, some pretending to sort files, others waiting to see Ethan's reaction. Finally, he stood. Sharp black suit, cold expression, and unmistakable authority in his voice. Skylin, your performance is excellent, he said, calm yet firm. But this is the office, not your home. Leave immediately and stop disrupting the meeting. I paused, then looked up with a playful smile. Are you sure, Mr. Fu? Ethan's frown deepened. I won't repeat myself. Professional boundaries exist for a reason. Cross them at your own risk. Emboldened, Winnie lunged, swiping my phone from my hand. Smash. The screen shattered. Skylin, stop testing me, she hissed, grabbing my collar. I told you to leave. Why are you still here? She'd hated me from the start, always complaining to Ethan about my slacker lifestyle and excessive gaming. I ignored her, knowing full well that gossip about me had spread throughout the company. Some called me a spoiled heiress, others claimed I lived in my office. They even bet on when I'd be fired. I knew it all, and I didn't care. The more I ignored her, the more outrageous she became. This time, she went over the edge. I wasn't going to stand for it. I grabbed her wrist and gave a firm twist. Ah! Winnie yelped, instinctively letting go of my collar. Her arm flailed, hitting the edge of the conference table. The sharp clink of her expensive watch against the wood echoed in the room. She froze, staring at her wrist. The light caught a scratch on the Patek Philippe, glaringly obvious. You, she stammered, trembling with fury. Skylin, do you know how much this watch costs? It was a birthday gift from Mr. Fu. $800,000. I straightened my collar, calm and deliberate. You stumbled. Whose fault is that? Skylin. Ethan Fu's voice finally cut through the tension. Enough. You're disrupting the meeting, and now you've damaged company property. As CEO, I'm officially terminating your employment. Collect your things and leave immediately. Winnie screamed. Don't let her off. She has to pay for the watch. The room went silent. Executives whispered and exchanged looks, some pitying me, others clearly eager for a spectacle. Fine, I said casually. I'll pay. 8 million, right? She blinked. 8 million? Yes, 8 million. I picked up my broken phone and dialed a number. Winnie snorted, disbelief written all over her face. You expect to magically summon 8 million in cash? I didn't answer. Less than 10 minutes later, the conference room door swung open. A sharply dressed man walked in, flanked by 3 bank officials carrying briefcases. He bowed slightly. Miss Shen, here's the 8 million you requested. I nodded. Thank you. Place it here. The briefcases opened, revealing stacks of $100 bills neatly lined up. Silence fell over the room, all eyes glued to the cash. Winnie was pale, her mouth agape. Even the finance director turned ghostly white. Liu. President Liu? He whispered. Liu Mingyuan, CEO of the Citibank's main branch, rarely seen in public, stood there, respectfully addressing me as Miss Shen. Even Ethan Fu's grandfather would have struggled to get a meeting with him. Ethan stepped forward, extending his hand. President Liu, why did you come personally? My grandfather speaks of you often, Liu said, ignoring Ethan. He'd be pleased to see you again. He turned to me. Miss Shen, if you need anything else, just say the word. Without another word, he left, his team following like shadows. Ethan's hand hung awkwardly in the air, his face reddened with embarrassment. Winnie's earlier arrogance evaporated. Her legs trembled, cold sweat dotting her forehead. I picked up a stack of bills and lightly tapped her cheek. Assistant Winnie, 8 million. Not a penny less. Then, deliberately, I yanked the scratched watch from her wrist and tossed it into the nearby trash bin. You, she fumed. I turned to Ethan with a faint smile. Mr. Fu, I covered the watch. Now, let's discuss compensation for my phone. Winnie scoffed. How much could a Huawei possibly cost? I held up a finger. Actually, 100 million. Gasps filled the room, followed by laughter. The marketing director slammed his hand on the table. 100 million? Are you serious? The finance director, adjusting his glasses, feigned solemnity. Market price, according to policy, Miss Shen. Winnie, smug moments ago, now looked uneasy. Delusional, she muttered. I smiled calmly. You're right, a regular Huawei wouldn't be worth much. But this isn't a regular Huawei. At that moment, the door opened again. A middle-aged man in a gray jacket entered, flanked by 8 bodyguards. Hank Hua, Senior VP of Huawei Group, an executive who appeared only at major announcements. Ethan's expression shifted instantly. He stepped forward. Mr. Hua, what brings you here? Hank Hua ignored Ethan Fu's greeting and walked straight toward me, giving a slight nod. Miss Shen, we've detected an unusual signal from your phone. I handed it over casually. Dropped it. He inspected the device carefully, his expression darkening. The damage is severe. Repairs, including component replacements, will cost roughly $70 million. The room went still. Winnie's jaw dropped, lips trembling. No, impossible. How can a phone cost that much? Hank Hua's gaze was icy. This is a limited edition, globally customized model. Its internal chip and encryption technology far surpass a standard flagship. Current market value, $100 million. It's not for sale. He pulled a file from his briefcase. Miss Shen, this appraisal report and purchase contract, should I read it aloud? I waved him off. No need. Everyone here heard it clearly. Silence. The finance director's glasses slid down his nose. The marketing director gaped, frozen in shock. And Winnie collapsed into her chair, sweat streaming down her face. Ethan Fu finally spoke, voice tight. Sky Lin, who exactly are you? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned to Winnie. Assistant Winnie, should we settle the compensation now? Her hysteria exploded. You're all conspiring to scam me. This phone isn't worth 100 million. Hank was signaled his bodyguards. Two of them stepped forward and gently but firmly restrained her. Ms. One, if you question this, you're welcome to pursue legal action, Hank said evenly. The Huawei Group's 3,865-person legal team will fully cooperate. Winnie's color drained further. Anyone who knew Huawei's legal power understood she had no chance, even with all of Fu Corp against her. Mr. Fu, save me, she whimpered. Ethan exhaled, stepping in front of her. Mr. Hua, there may be a misunderstanding. I will personally cover Assistant Winnie's compensation.
Hank looked at me.
I gave a slight nod, and only then did he sheath the file. 3 days to resolve this, he said, and he and his team exited. The door closing sounded like a thunderclap. I looked at Ethan and Winnie, a small smile tugging at my lips. A spontaneous $100 million payout, Mr. Fu. No board approval required. Before he could respond, Winnie tried to reclaim her defiance. Sky Lin, don't forget you're fired. None of this concerns you. The other executives whispered among themselves. She's no longer with the company. Why is she lecturing the CEO? Ethan Fu raised a hand to silence the room. Sky Lin, since you're no longer employed at Fu Corp, this matter is closed. The $100 million compensation will be transferred to your account within 3 days. Please leave. I remained seated, smiling faintly. So generous, Mr. Fu. 100 million for a simple assistant. But I wonder, did your father approve this? Winnie tugged at Ethan's sleeve. Ignore her, Mr. Fu. She's babbling. I grinned. Babbling? Shall I call him for you? Winnie panicked, grabbing my phone and stomping it into pieces. She arrogantly declared that, since payment was agreed, the phone was hers and no one could stop her. Ethan's expression hardened. Sky Lin, this is Fu Corporation. I am in charge here.
Leave.
I tapped the table lightly. Calmly, I said, I can leave under one condition. Mr. Fu's grandfather must come personally. Winnie laughed, a high-pitched, mocking sound. Who do you think you are? Do you deserve him to come begging? Ethan stepped forward, voice cold. Sky Lin, this is your final warning. This is not a playground. Leave now. Executives began calling security, but I stayed seated, eyes flicking to the window. Outside, a black limousine pulled up. A white-haired man, leaning on a cane, emerged, supported by a serious-looking aide. I chuckled lightly. Looks like I don't need to call. Ethan's face drained of color. Dad? Grandpa? Winnie's laughter died as Grandpa Fu strode into the room. His gaze swept over the chaos, finally resting on me. Miss Shun, my apologies for being late, he said, and the room fell silent. Ethan stared, stunned. Grandpa, what did you call her? Grandpa Fu ignored him, bowing slightly. Miss Shun, the Fu family has failed in raising our children. We allowed you to be mistreated. I didn't tell you earlier because I didn't want to burden you, planning to wait until after the engagement. Ethan's fingers trembled. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I adjusted my stained dress, calm as ever. Don't trouble him for me, Mr. Fu. Since Fu Corp doesn't welcome me, I'll leave. Ethan's father blocked my path, voice pleading. Sky, this is our fault. Please give us a chance to make amends. I turned slowly to Ethan, pale and shocked. A chance? I smiled faintly. Fu Corp still in a position to negotiate. The projection screen flickered to life, showing a breaking headline. Fu Corp stock plummets 30%. Market cap nearly $1 billion wiped out. Executives slumped. Ethan's pupils contracted. I pulled out my second phone and made a call. Within a minute, the stock curve steadied. Silence. Everyone stared at me as if I were some unstoppable force. Ethan's father, red with rage, slapped Winnie across the face. Kneel. Apologize to Ms. Shen. Her lips split, a tooth flying free. Ethan rushed forward, but I remained calm. I adjusted my cuff. Since Mr. Fu insists on protecting her, an apology isn't necessary. Another slap sent Winnie crashing to her knees, eliciting gasps from everyone. Ethan, step aside. Do you know who you're defending? His father roared. Ethan stood stubbornly, arms spread protectively. No one should be bullied.
He glared at me.
Skylin, using your connections to humiliate people, shameful and despicable. I walked toward him, recalling the cheap cologne Winnie had given him, while the $10 million watch I gifted months ago had never been worn. Ethan Fu, I said, voice calm but sharp. I asked you out 14 times over the past 3 months. 14 times, and you rejected me every single time. You always claimed you were busy with work, I continued, letting my gaze sweep toward Winnie. And later, I realized that each rejection wasn't about work, it was because you were with her. Ethan's lashes fluttered, but he quickly raised his chin. So what? I can date whoever I want. We only have a marriage contract. We're not actually married. Of course, I replied, nodding. But tell me, do you know why every proposal you submitted was instantly approved? Do you know why your competitors mysteriously withdrew from bids? Do you know why banks approved loans for you when you clearly weren't qualified? Ethan's expression darkened. What are you implying? Grandpa Fu, leaning on his cane, approached, letting out a heavy sigh. Ethan, for the past 6 months, the reason Fu Corp succeeded in going public and saw its stock triple is entirely due to Ms. Shen's support. Impossible. Ethan spat. That's the result of our team's hard work. I pulled out my phone and projected a document onto the screen. In the last 6 months, I mobilized 17 Lin family business contacts to remove every obstacle for Fu Corporation, including persuading Wei Zhen Group to withdraw from the South City land bid, enabling Fu Corp to secure it at the lowest price. Winnie scrambled to her feet, shrieking, "Liar! This is all fabricated. Mr. Fu, don't believe her." Grandpa Fu's fist slammed her legs, sending her crashing to her knees. "Shut up, worthless dog." I stayed unfazed, slipping on my coat. "Grandpa Fu, Mr. Fu's father, since you're both present, I'll take my leave. And as for the marriage contract between our families, consider it null and void." "Miss Shen." Grandpa Fu rushed to block me. Ethan intervened, eyes red but posture firm. "Let her go. I don't need a fiancé who uses her background to bully others." I placed the jade engagement bracelet on the table. This was exchanged by our grandfathers. "I'm returning it." Ethan's father looked defeated. Grandpa Fu closed his eyes, weary and aged by years. Pausing at the door, I added, "Starting tomorrow, the Lin Group will terminate all collaboration with Fu Corp, including ongoing projects and pending financing." Ethan gasped. "You can't. Those projects are critical to Fu Corp's 10-year plan and the livelihoods of thousands." I smiled faintly. "I can. Just like you could reject me 14 times for a mere assistant." As I left, Grandpa Fu's despairing voice rang out. "Miss Shen, please give the Fu family one more chance." I didn't stop. In the following month, Fu Corp's collapse was swift. Major projects stalled due to cash shortages. Investors withdrew. Stock prices plummeted to historic lows. Winnie was fired personally by Grandpa Fu the next day and vanished from the city in disgrace. Rumor spread that she had been sold overseas into human trafficking. Meanwhile, I sat in a revolving high-rise restaurant in New York City, facing Julian Jiang, my childhood friend, freshly returned from Cambridge. Teasing me over dessert, he said, "Miss Shen, I heard you threw a ton of family resources at a man and lost everything?" I sipped my wine lazily. It was my grandfather's wish. I had to respect the engagement. Julian smiled, eyes twinkling. "Now that the engagement is off, how about me?" Before I could answer, a familiar figure appeared at the entrance. Ethan Fu, pale, watch I'd gifted him on his wrist, looking unlike his usual confident self. He strode straight toward me. "Skylin, can I speak with you alone?" Julian raised an eyebrow, silent. Ethan bowed deeply. "Skylin, I beg you to return to Fu Corp. You're the only one who can save it now." I didn't respond. Julian set down his fork, smirking. "Regretting it now, Mr. Fu? Did you foresee this day, when you let your assistant humiliate Skylin?" Ethan clenched his jaw. "Skylin, I was wrong. If you don't return, thousands will lose their jobs. Projects will halt. Why should I care?" I interrupted. "I'm no longer employed there. You fired me." Julian stood, towering over Ethan, presence commanding. Do you realize how many Lin family resources she deployed for you? She even created an emergency response team near your company just to cover your mistakes. He slammed a folder of encrypted files onto the table. These are all her contingency plans. And all you saw was her playing games. Ethan stumbled back. I didn't know. Julian grasped my hand. Now you see. A woman this extraordinary, treated like dirt. Someone else will fight to cherish her. Let's go. Uncle Lin is waiting for us to try on wedding dresses. Ethan froze. Wedding dresses? I didn't deny it. I allowed Julian to pull me up, tossing a parting remark over my shoulder. The Weizen group will officially take over the South City project tomorrow. They only withdrew for me as a favor. Through the glass, I saw Ethan still standing, silhouette elongated by the sunset. Julian squeezed my arm. Softening up? I smiled faintly. Not a chance. Fu Corp soon declared bankruptcy. The business world buzzed in shock. Once a shining star, now just an empty building and a mountain of debt. Grandpa Fu's hair turned white overnight. Ethan's father scrambled for help, but nobody dared intervene. Offending the Lin family was career suicide. Under the Lin Group, I acquired all of Fu Corp's assets at rock-bottom prices. The day after the acquisition, I stood before the Fu Corp headquarters, Lin Group's elite team behind me. The receptionist stammered, Ms. Sachin. I ignored her, heading straight for the elevator. On the top-floor conference room, executives waited nervously. All eyes turned to me as I entered. Gentlemen, thank you for waiting, I said, sitting at the head of the table, calm and composed. Starting today, Fu Corp merges into the Lin Group. And as for all of you, I looked each in the eye. You are terminated. Chaos erupted. The finance director shot up. Miss Shun, we've dedicated 10 years. You can't. Can't I? I snapped, slamming a folder onto the table. These contain 3 years of financial discrepancies and illegal operations. Sign your termination papers or risk jail. Faces drained of color. No one dared speak. As I walked out, I saw Ethan at the corridor's end, cardboard box in hand, hollow-eyed. Skylin, satisfied now. The business world is a battlefield. Victory depends on skill, I said coldly. He hesitated, voice soft. If I hadn't treated you that way, would things have been different? I didn't answer. I turned and walked away. Behind me, his suppressed sobs echoed. Some mistakes, once made, are permanent.